Well, Coach, thanks so much for joining us. It's our first podcast episode of the season, and we couldn't think of a better guest to really kick off the Blackhawks podcast this year. So welcome. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. I'm excited for the season. We got lots of work ahead of us, but I think the guys are in a good mind frame to just get to work and do what they need to do. And we've got some areas of improvement, and we've addressed them. And I think the guys have picked some points that I've wanted to start the season off as a foundation and done a pretty good job of it. But there's just found some breakdowns in early exhibition season games that are really glaring, and those are what we've talked about. And we just want to try and clean those up along the way. We're going to take one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. We don't want to do 10 things half right. Sure. We want to do one thing really right, and then move on to the next one. So,
if I'm not mistaken, this is year 35 for you in the NHL as both a player and a coach. That's a generation, man. Congratulations. That's a long time. But you've got to be thinking that this is the most unique start to a season that you've ever had. It's your first season as a head coach in this league. When you reflect back on the entire body of work that you've put into this league, I mean, does this year really stand out to you?
Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity. I've had opportunities to play in the league, be assistant coach, interim head coach, but this is the first real full head-time coaching gig in the NHL. I think I've just been reflecting on all the things that I've learned from coaches I played for, coached with, managers that I coached for, just little things that you learn along the way that you wish you knew back then. And I just want to pass all that on to the players. That's really what I want to do. I just want the players to do well. It's really not about us, the coaches. It's about us just trying to get a plan in place that's proper for the players to succeed, and that's all we're trying to do.
I think I might know what your answer to this question is, but more nervous for your first game in the NHL as a player or as a coach?
Probably definitely a player, because it was at the stadium in Chicago in '87, right after a big trade with the Leafs and the Blackhawks with Eddie Olczyk, which everybody knows, and Al Secord, and then it was, I think, Rick Vive and Steve Thomas and Bob McGill going the other way, which was key because that opened up a defense spot for a young defenseman coming in with Toronto. So played my first game, and there was a lot of buzz with the trade and division rivalries back then. And, it was really exciting. But, now, I think I'm more excited than nervous. I can't wait to be on the other side of that national anthem, that excitement, not the intimidation part of it as an opposing team. And I've told the guys that I said, we want to use that energy of the national anthem and the great sports city of Chicago to propel us out of the gate in our own rank. We want to use it as an advantage, as an extra tool.
That is so storybook, the way your career has come full circle like this. Your first NHL game is in Chicago. Now you're the head coach of the Blackhawks. When you were a player, and then before you took the head coaching job as an assistant coach in the league, what were your thoughts about the city of Chicago and the hockey culture in town? Yeah,
I always loved it. I remember being a young player. I think maybe I was in minor hockey, and I want to say I knew of Eddie Olczyk just from him being drafted to the Chicago Blackhawks and coming out of the Olympic program. And I think his brother was in town in Ottawa when I was a young guy playing for Chicago minor hockey team, a high-level minor hockey team. And I remember going to the rink and watching him play, and I knew who his brother was from TV. And then I ended up being roommates with Eddie my first road trip in Chicago. It's kind of weird that it happens to be in Chicago. I've always loved the city of Chicago. Right from my first game, that I think I just fell in love with, like, the sports attitude and the support in the rink. And it's just a beautiful city. It's I love to visit and just walk around downtown and learn about the history. And it's on the lake. I always love being around water, so that's just kind of another thing. It just brings more to the city for me, with not just the lake but the rivers running through it. So I love just being a part of the city and the community now, and I walk around every night and just try and take a different route every time just to kind of see and observe the city.
Have you tried deep dish yet?
I have, and I think I had it once at the stadium way back when I wasn't dressing for a game, but it's not the same as maybe having it. I think I was at Lou's. It was you got to go right to where it's. So I went in there, and it was obviously. I think it was a day off, so I had some time, and we're walking around the city, so I was really hungry. So it was perfect comfort food to go home to, so it was great.
Deep dish is definitely a commitment. And just so you know, not many people talk about this, but Lou's has really good thin crust, too. If you're ever in,
I've heard they've had both,
yeah.
And I think gluten, which we have a friend coming to town, so that's helpful to know.
That's great to know.
Gluten-free, really.
That's great to know. Your friend from Ottawa, by any chance?
Actually, no, Boston.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The reason I ask, I know you're an Ottawa guy. That's where you were born. That's where your playing career ended, and where your NHL coaching career started. This is my first year in the NHL. I've never been to Ottawa. So what's one thing that a first-time visitor to Ottawa has to do?
Well, I know the rink is way out in the suburbs, so if you have a chance to go downtown, it's for Canada. It's not as old as the U.S., but it's pretty, close to the same time frame. And it's got the historic Parliament buildings. It's capital of Canada, so it's beautiful to walk around there and visit that. And that's right beside the canal. So the canal's there. Summer, it's beautiful just to go for a run or rent a bike or a scooter and go along the canal. And in the winter, you can bring your skates and go for a skate along the canal. So it's a pretty unique city that way. It's a very active city, kind of like the waterfront in Chicago and the riverfront in Chicago, or the riverway pathways in Chicago. I find a lot of similarities that way. You see a lot of people out in the morning, lunchtime, and the weekends exercising, and it just brings more of a community feel. So I kind of feel Ottawa's not as near as big as Chicago, but they got a same sense of community atmosphere.
Any good places to eat in particular?
Yeah, there's a couple in Ottawa. I think if you like Italian, Giovanni's is probably the best down Little Italy in Ottawa. And Little Italy in Ottawa is little. It's one street, so it's not hard to miss. But it's great to go. And ironically, you said was my friend from Ottawa. I do have a friend coming to a game in Vegas, and the next time Vegas comes to Ottawa, because Vegas's head coach is from West Ottawa, where I'm from. Bruce Cassidy, and one of our mutual best friends loves to heckle us, and he is coming to sit between both benches and heckle both head coaches at the same time.
What's he going to be wearing?
Funny enough, he went and picked up, I grew up playing for the Ottawa West Golden Knights, and so did Bruce Cassidy. So he's going to pick my Ottawa West Golden Knight jersey to wear in the Vegas rink. It kind of goes with the theme there.
Sure.
And then when he comes to Chicago, he's wearing the Blackhawks jersey and it was a game worn by Bruce Cassidy. So he's kind of feels like he's supporting both of us, and he's kind of not going to ruffle any feathers in the crowd.
Well, we'll talk before that Las Vegas game, and we'll be sure to get him on our telecast of that game. We'll be sure to give him some love and some airtime. So thank you for that. That's a good tip. How did you first get into hockey growing up as a kid?
Well, my dad played hockey, and I just grew up as I remember barely being able to walk, kind of going into arenas, watching him play senior hockey with guys like Brian Murray, and which ended up being a longtime coach and general manager in the league, and I played for her at the end of my career. So senior hockey was huge back then. Back it was original 6 teams, and then just expansion. And my dad, I used to love going and watch him play. And he obviously wanted me to play hockey, so he got me skates and taught me how to skate and coached my first organized hockey. I was 5 years old, and it was an outdoor rink, and my toes were freezing every Sunday. My mom would bring up our front doormat and put it in the snow, and when it wasn't your shift, you sit in the snowbank, so my toes would be freezing. So I'd sit on the mat from the outside of her front door. So that was my introduction to hockey, and didn't matter how cold it was, I couldn't wait for Saturday to come and play. And then I just kind of grew from there and just played every year and loved it. So got better. I was lucky enough that, I practiced when our team practiced, but when we didn't practice, I put the skates on the end of my stick and walked to the local park and played at that same outdoor rink that I started on all the way up to junior hockey. So I think that was a huge benefit for me.
When did you realize that you could play in the NHL and that this could really be a career for you?
I don't know if I thought NHL. I had aspirations to be in the NHL, but when I was 13, I was big. I was growing fast, and I think my skating was always strong. But because I was growing, I just became stronger, and I kind of fell into, a place where I felt like I was doing really well. I was getting better, and was moving really quickly. And then from there, from 13 to 18, went really fast. I played, Bantam hockey, and then I got called up to the midget team when we got beat out. Played in the national championship as an extra player, which was some injuries, so I ended up playing lots and got some good exposure against older players 2 years older than me. And then I went right from there to junior B, played with guys 5 years older than me, and then I went to junior A and played 2 years in junior A, and then drafted to the NHL as an 18-year-old and played with guys like Borja Salming, which was double my age exactly. Could have been my dad. So
wow.
From the age 13, 14 to 18 went very quick, and my progression kept par. It kept growing with it as well, just because I think I was a big kid. I was probably almost the same size in junior B as I was my first year in the NHL. And then, from there, you're just working on your strength and toning your body to become a pro athlete. So, it was a fast track.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed every minute of it. I think that's why I made it. It was a passion, and I was lucky enough to have the body to do it.
I think it's cool that you were the 7th overall pick in your draft class, and over the summer, the Blackhawks had the 7th overall pick as well, and they drafted a defenseman who we're all really excited to see how he develops in the organization, Kevin Korchinski. You played 21 seasons in the NHL, man. I mean, 1,400 games as a defenseman, outstanding, 35 goals. That's only a few less than Patrick Kane in his career. So I'm just wondering, do you remember every single goal that you had? Because sometimes, you only had one goal in a season. So looking back on your career, does every goal memory stand out to you?
Yeah, not everyone, but the important ones, I guess. And I guess if you only got 35 and that many games, they're all important. But, I'm one of those guys, like hockey sports nerds. I kind of remember things, and, I remember my goals, but I remember other people's goals and special moments and being on the ice or at the game for that. And, I took pride in the job that I had to do. I'm not a Kevin Korchinski, totally different player. He can skate rings around me, that's for sure. But I knew what my role was. I probably a little bit more offensive in junior and well-rounded defenseman. And I was on a team that was not a real strong team at the time in Toronto, and we were getting scored on lots, and I wasn't having a lot of offensive success as a young player. I don't get a lot of ice time on the power play and stuff like that. I just wasn't there yet. So, I think working on my defensive game and trying to become a stronger defensive team member and paying attention to detail more on and trying to hone maybe and mold kind of a style for myself that was going to last. And I didn't mind blocking shots or playing physical and stuff like that. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I play better when I'm a little bit more revved up and play physical. So I thought it was a natural route to go, and it worked out well. And I was lucky enough to avoid a lot of injuries through my career, just a few. And it allowed me to play a long time, and it had some success. And, we didn't win the Stanley Cup. Got to the semifinals twice, got to the finals coaching once, and World Championship gold and silver. So there's some and a Junior B title as well. So I had some really good moments in my career, but still chasing the one that's been eluding. And, it might not be today or tomorrow, but it's going to be at some point. I'm just going to keep going after it.
Well, I got to ask, what was the most impactful goal that you scored in your career?
In my NHL career?
Either or, NHL specifically, or just broadly is fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I think probably, I know I had an overtime goal in Philadelphia that was really exciting. It ends a game. It's like a walk-off home run, right? You just skate to the dressing room. So that was very exciting. But for me, I was in regular season, and I think it was 4-on-4 back then. But I think the most meaningful goal that I was a part of was the longest game and third longest game in NHL history. I think it was the longest game in modern history. We went 5 overtimes against Pittsburgh in the playoff game. And I got an assist on the game-winning goal by Keith Primo. And I passed it over to my partner, Dan McGillis, and he went up to Keith Primo, and he made a great move and scored on one of my junior teammates, Ron Tugnut, to end the game. And I remember just being so exhausted. It was about 3:15 in the morning when we scored. Got home about 6 in the morning. The birds were chirping, and you got to play less than 30 hours later. And I think just being a part of that, and I have that game sheet. The team gave us a nice plaque, with a game sheet for everybody on it, and I have it hanging in my gym in Ottawa at home. And just looking at it, it's a special thing. So I didn't score the goal, but I was a part of it. It was a great honor to be a part of it, and I think that really won us the series. Whoever won that game, they went up 3-1, or we tied it 2-2 with all the momentum, and they put all that effort in the game, and you lose. I could see it in their eyes when I was skating on the ice to celebrate, and they were skating off. You could just see it. We beat them 5-2 the next game, I think. So it was pretty much over.
Best teammate that you had in the NHL?
Oh man, there's a lot. There's a lot of them. Yeah. I have some great friends over the years that are really good teammates. Eddie Olczyk, still keep in touch with Eddie from years one. My first roommate, him and his wife Diana, always looked after myself and Stephanie when we were young in Toronto, and still keep in contact to this day. So pretty special, and showing me the ropes. I think he took me for a nice breakfast at I forget what diner it was, but I'll have to find out, in Chicago before my first game.
Yeah, let me know, definitely.
And we won the game, so it was a good luck diner. But Eddie's special. And then going through my years, I had lucky enough to play with a lot of really good veterans, like Brad Marsh and Rob Ramage in Toronto, and Boreas Salming were great mentors as older players to me. And then I went to Edmonton, and Kevin Lowe and Craig McTavish, what great mentors, that were players that have had success in the league and took the time to not just show me the ropes by going, hey, rookie, come on, do it this way. Actually, we're your teammate and your best friend, and you're a part of the family. And and then I moved on to Philadelphia, and again, I had a chance to play against Rick Tocchet for years, and we'd battle like two hammers going against each other. But as soon as you get together with a new teammate that you used to battle hard against, you have ultimate respect, and you become best friends right away. And you know it, and you feel it, and it's a strong bond. So they're all really special, for sure.
Well, I hope you don't mind me saying, I think safe to say that Philadelphia was the high point in your career in terms of your hair. You had some really good flow then. We'll try and get a picture of that into the podcast as well. How about the toughest player that you had to shut down in the NHL as a defenseman? Yeah,
Cam Neely's probably one of them. I know people, I can say Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux 10 times over, and it is true by far. In different ways, because they were different styles of player, even though they were great. But I used to remember dreading Boston, and in right winger, left defenseman, just line up every face-off, every D-zone. And you know what, we never got any tussles or really yelling matches or anything. We just had some really good hard hits, a couple battles and standoffs in front of the nets, but just mutual respect. We both played hard. Physical, but not dirty, and respected each other and did our business as best we could against each other. And I thought it was probably one of the toughest opponents, a guy that was that big and strong and mean in front of the net with good hands. It's a pretty hard combination to come by.
All right, I do have to follow up with you a little bit on that, because you have a reputation of being a player's coach and a high character guy. But some of the most iconic moments of your career involve fighting. And I know that's part of the game, but when you look back at your reputation as a player and some of the fights that you did participate in, was it just a case of, hey, didn't want to fight but had to when it happened? Or how do you reflect back on your reputation as a player?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of all the scenarios. You know what I mean? When you're around that long, you hit all the scenarios. But I think, if I had to pick a category that was the most often reason why I had fights, was usually standing up for teammates, or someone coming after me because they're standing up because I laid out one of their teammates. And it was probably most of the same theme either way resulted in the same. If I look back, there wasn't a lot of for no reason. Mm-hmm. Stand back and fight. I thought, you make it a reason. You're losing the game, you're mad, you're punished their good players. Send a message so they're not going to play as good or as comfortable the next time they're in town. Other players don't like that. They protect their players. Same thing, they're going to do that to our team, and we're not going to let it happen. So that was my mentality on fighting.
So you actually started your final season as a player in the NHL, retired in the second month of the season approximately, and then shortly thereafter became an assistant coach with the Ottawa Senators, your hometown team. At what point in your career did you realize that coaching was the next step for you?
Pretty early. I started as 18-year-old, so I got lots of experience early. So what was I going to do with that experience? I think naturally I'm just kind of a guy that a new player would come to town, I'd let him borrow a car or come live at our house for a while or have him over for dinner. That's just the way we were. Me as a teammate and our family as a family, we were part of the hockey family too. So we always did that. And I think because of doing that, it became you were mentoring off the ice, but I was mentoring on the ice, on the bench. And I think I learned that from Borje Salming my first year. He used to grab me. We had a hard-nosed coach. He wasn't the most X's and O's coach, John Brophy, real tough guy. Taught me how to play hard and mean every day and train train your body to be physically fit for the National Hockey League. But the X's and O's wasn't really there. And I think the older players knew that. So they'd grab me on the bench, and Borje had that raspy voice and he'd call me Lucas. He'd be like, Lucas, you got to do this. So he'd shake my arm. And then he'd jump over the boards and go play his shift, and he wouldn't miss a beat. And I really admired that. And I tried to emulate that as I got older to help the young guys while they were going without affecting my game. And I thought I did it pretty well. And I think coaches counted on me. And you kind of thought, if I was a coach, I would do this, or I wouldn't do that or something. And then I kept realizing I kept saying that. So as I got older, I got to a time when I went down to Tampa and played 1 year in Tampa. And John Tortorella, I don't know if he was on the same page as the management when they signed me. So he told me right out, everybody knows the way he is. He's very upfront. He said, I don't visualize you being a starter. You're going to be probably the 7th D. I said, I'll give you whatever I have whenever you need me. And I think he appreciated that. And I played a little bit and had some success, and then I didn't play very much the second half. So he came up to me in the gym one day. He knew I was frustrated. And he said, I respect your career and what you did. I don't want to see you finish your career on a stationary bike. Would you like to do some coaching duties while you're not playing, if you're not playing? But I need you to stay in shape and ready that if someone goes down, we need you. I said, I can do that. Wow. So it was great. It was a great experience right from the first game. I think it was the first game. I go upstairs with the goalie coach, Jeff Reese, which I played with, and we come down in between periods. And he wanted our opinion on what we saw up top. And it was 3-0 for, I think, Arizona after the first period. We were not very good, and we were a good team. So the door was closed. He's yelling in there, and Jeff Reese goes, get out of the line of sight, because we'll take it if it's just whoever's in the line of his sight. So we go down to the coach's room. I'm standing there, comes in, he's swearing, he's yelling, he's going off, and he's yelling at the video coach, I want to see this. And then he comes by and he stops, and I'm standing in the door frame, and he looks at me, and he's all fired up, and he goes, and what did you see? And I was like, well, guys weren't ready to play from the start of the game. I wasn't lying. I'd say the same thing if I was in the dressing room to the guys. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And he went back and he was like, so it was a good experience for me. He had me in the coach's room preparing the playoff booklet, and I still practiced every day with the extra players, trying to keep everybody ready, whoever was needed. So I never got in a playoff game that year, but I thought I was valuable to the team in a different way. And I think that was kind of the real first sign that I really got that bite I wanted to coach. But I ended up going to Ottawa the next year, played a full season, and then the next year I made the team on a tryout and played about a month and a half. And then I didn't play very many games, but I was there with the team. And then Brian Murray had to make some roster moves, and I was older defenseman, and they wanted to bring some guys in. They were struggling, and I was going to have to go on waivers. So he goes, you probably don't want to go to the minors and play. And I said, well, not specifically. And he said, I could put you on waivers, see if someone claims you. And I'm like, but he said, or I can do it in a way and let everybody know that you're not going to go and you're going to retire, and we can offer you a spot on the coaching staff. They had a very small coaching staff at the time. And he goes, I've already talked to the coaches and they'd be happy to have your help. And I said, I'll take it because it's my hometown. I'm 39. It probably won't be there next September. And he's like, I can't guarantee that. And I said, well, I could chase it around for another 8 months and then come back, and that opportunity is not there. So I thought it was a smart and right move to do, and ever since I've been coaching.
And you did do some time in the AHL, in the minors. I did time in minor league baseball as a broadcaster. I know what that life is like down there. What is life like in the minors in hockey?
I enjoyed my time there. So it was funny because I went there and I was so excited to go. First head coaching opportunity. I was into Binghamton a few times before, just on kind of player development while I was coaching in Ottawa, and I just thought, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me. I was the only one excited to be there because everybody else is going to be cut from Ottawa. They all want to be playing in Ottawa, and I'm the only guy that wants to be there. So I said that, I led that off in my first meeting with the players. I said, I'm probably the only one in the room that is excited to be here right now, but it's an opportunity for you guys to get to the next level. So that's the way I treated it, was as a stepping stone for guys in their career where they want to go. And sometimes it's maybe just from getting into the league, getting your first step into the American League to being, maybe you're capped off, maybe you don't get to the NHL, but you're a top end guy in the American League and make a good living and enjoy the game you love. I just wanted to create an environment for the guys that gave them the best chance to do their best there, to get seen at their best.
In terms of your coaching philosophy and style, I'm thinking back to something that you said at the start of our conversation when, as a coach now, you think about all the things that you wish you had known as a player in the league and want to pass those on. What are some of those lessons?
I think, you're not just going out. As a young player, you're so excited to play the game. You just play the game. So you don't have a lot of thought process of how the tactics that a coach will have, like who's on the ice at the end of a period when it's 3-2, when you're leading, or when you're losing 3-2 at the end of the game. Carrying the puck up the ice, and are you just dumping it in to dump it in, or are you going to try and dangle someone, turn it over, and they come down and score a goal in the last minute? Like, just little things that you learn, the hard lessons you learn along the way that you kind of now, they're embedded in you as a coach, and you try and get them across to those guys so they don't make those tough mistakes. They can if they can listen and absorb and learn that without making those mistakes, they're still learning it, but they're going to cut out some errors, which is going to hopefully track their progression faster so they can get to a knowledgeable veteran player at a younger age, is what I'm trying to do.
I'm really interested to ask you this next thing because I get asked a lot as the broadcaster about the rebuild dynamic and the rebuild situation around the team this year. And I think back to something that you told Kyle Davidson, and you told us this on one of the first days of training camp, that you're going to try and make Kyle Davidson, the general manager's job, as hard as possible by winning as many games this season. A lot of people out there think that the Blackhawks are tanking, if you will, to get the first overall pick in the draft next year. And as a coach, how are you handling the rebuild dynamic and sort of being a middleman between what the general manager wants and then what the players and the fans want?
Yeah, I think my job as coach is to coach the team, and we're going to coach the team and our whole staff have a really good bond quickly already. We're trying to find the best ways to give ourselves the best chance to win every night. That's the way we approach the game. We want the players to approach the game, and Kyle approaches the game like that too. Just the reality is where we've maybe traded players that were at a higher caliber. We're starting at a lower level right now. We got to build ourselves back up. That's why we have to create a really good foundation that we can fall back on, and because there will be some stumbling blocks, but if you got that foundation base, we can bounce back up quicker, and that's what we need. I think just making Kyle's job hard is going to be hard. Right? That's going to be hard. So this league is hard to win no matter who you are, what team you are. Yeah. So the position we're in, I choose to neglect the term rebuild. I just, I'm a coach. I don't think that way. But do I realistically know what position we're in? Yeah. And we got a long road with a lot of hard work. We're not afraid of it. So we want to make the players not feel afraid of the work. Let's do the work, the sacrifice early. We're going to have some payoffs and some dividends down the road. And do we have the patience for that? Maybe not every day. So some days we have to bring them back and realize that where we are. We got to go through step 1 and step 2. We can't skip to step 5. If we do, we're going to be chugging and kicking this around for years. Mm-hmm. But if you can do step 1 properly, step 2 properly, step 3 properly, not knowing how long that's going to take. We might be stuck on 1 for a while. We might get through 1 quick, and then 2, we might get stuck on 2 for a while. But we can't go to 3 until we're good on 2. Otherwise, we lose our structure at the bottom. And I think that's everybody, from coaches to the veteran players to the younger players to the guys that come in and out that we call up from Rockford. We have to have a knowledge of how we're going to play, our identity here, and we're going to do it every night to our best. And I think that creates a culture of expecting more, not being satisfied when we do achieve a little bit more, and we keep pushing. And I think we will get there. I don't want to put a timeline on it. I'd love to say it's going to be quicker, and I always hope that things are going to be quicker. I'm pretty optimistic that way in hockey, but we will have to take some steps. And right now, I think the guys have made some good steps in training camp, but when we have a hiccup, it's usually a big one, and we have to really focus on minimizing those, especially against like a season opener against Colorado. You can't have too many of those, or they're going to make you pay.
Well, I'm going to have to rewatch this, and I'm going to go back to this answer because I'm going to write down and take notes on your response to that, because I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's good for me to hear when I get asked the same questions as well. I'll get you out of here on this. What does success look like for this team this year? And maybe if you could break the season down into chunks, what's a benchmark that you want to see this team at, for example, at the All-Star break or at some other moment in the season?
Yeah, I don't want to put a position in the standings or a number on the points total, because I don't want to ever cap a team.
Sure.
Or put pressure on a team if it's too much. So no matter if you're in a young team that's in transition or a Colorado Avalanche, I don't want to do that. I think what I want to do is, you paint a picture of what we look like now, and we should all be on ground level, building that structure, that first platform, that base that we can always go back to, we can fall back to. So our systems, our trust with one another, our work ethic, our attitudes coming to the rink, all those are grouped in there, and that's what forms what we are now. In the middle of the season, I'd love to see us showing strides of getting over certain humps, getting over games where we can hold a lead in the third period. We can show a little bit of maturity where we don't crack and crumble. Coming out early and then only playing 20 minutes and then thinking it's being satisfied with that. And then it comes back to haunt us, and we don't play great for 40 minutes and you lose the game, or you make it close where you're just not feeling confident about it. And then you get to the end of the year where we are feeling comfortable in close games, confident in ourselves coming back from an early deficit in a game, or maybe a couple losses in a row, getting over that hump and getting a crucial win, and getting the tide turned the other way, especially at home, using our home ice to our advantage. By the end of the year, I want it to be a place that's very tough to come and play in Chicago. Mm-hmm. It's exciting to watch, and we get results. So between now and then, that's the transition I'd like to see the team have.
Start another season, man. We're all really excited. Thanks so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. It's been great to work with you so far, and can't wait for the full 82.
I got it. I can't wait either.